Hey, what's going on everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another Pioneer deck tech. So today, we're going to be talking about Boros cycling. I'm really excited to bring this list to you. It's a list that's been going around on and off for the last couple of years, since about the Ikoria expansion, and I'm really excited to bring an updated list to everybody. So before we hop into it here, as always, let me know in the comment section below, do you like the list? Do you hate the list? What would you change? And as always, if there's a deck you'd like to see in an upcoming video, just let me know in the comment section below. And as always, the deck list will be in the description below if you'd like to check it out for yourself. All right, so we're going to hop into it here. So with the Boros cycling, there's kind of one main card that kind of runs the whole deck, which we're not going to talk about first. We're going to kind of build up to it, explain what cards we're playing, and they're very unique cards that really no other deck plays for the most part. So it's going to be a fun deck to talk about today. So, our main creatures here, we're playing 4 Flourishing Fox. It's a 1/1 for 1 white Fox. Whenever you cycle another card, put a +1/+1 counter on Flourishing Fox, and it has cycling 1. So, a lot of the, spoiler alert, a lot of the cards that we cycle, we're going to want to cycle. The Flourishing Fox is for sure the one card that if we have it in our opening hand, we are going to play the Flourishing Fox instead of actually cycling it. Just because, when we cycle all of our other cards, it's going to get gigantic. If we go turn 1 Flourishing Fox, we can go turn 2 cycle. It's a 3/3. So Flourishing Fox is a fantastic card to play in the deck. Then we're playing 4 Droneth Stinger and 4 Droneth Healer. They're both 2/2s for 2 for, 2/2s for 2 mana, but they both have a cycling ability. So whenever you cycle another card, Droneth Stinger deals 1 damage to each opponent. And whenever you cycle another card with Droneth Healer, you gain 1 life, and they both have cycling 1. So, Droneth Stinger and Droneth Healer typically, pretty much whatever, at least playing one first, play whatever one you think is better for the specific matchup. If you're the aggressor in the matchup, obviously play the Stinger. If you're playing against like an aggro deck, you probably want to play the Healer. Start gaining some life, that kind of thing. These guys you do cycle. You don't always want to play them on 2. The draw on the Stinger, if you're trying to kill them as fast as you can, though, you definitely want to play the Stinger instead of cycle it away. A lot of it just kind of depends on the matchup that you're currently in, but both fantastic cards. So, next we have 4 Valiant Rescuer. It's a 3/1 for 1 and a white Human Soldier. Whenever you cycle another card for the first time each turn, create a 1/1 white Human Soldier creature token, and then it has cycling 2 instead of cycling 1. So, Valiant Rescuer is a card that we're going to be cycling most of the time. We're not always going to want to cycle it, but for the most part, we pretty much are. It kind of depends on, again, the matchup. Imposing Vantasaur. We're playing 4 of those as well. 5 and a white for a 3/6 with Vigilance Dinosaur, and then as cycling 1. Spoiler alert, we are almost always going to be cycling the Imposing Vantasaur. It's just a 1 mana cycler that's in our colors, and that's why we're playing it. So be prepared to cycle this card pretty much every time, unless you were in a very dire situation and need to cast it. But again, we're not going to be doing that most of the time. Then we're playing 4 Yadaro Wandering Monster. It's an 8/8 trampled haste for 5 red with cycling 1 in red. When you cycle Yadaro Wandering Monster, shuffle into your library from your graveyard. If you cycled a card named Yadaro Wandering Monster 4 or more times this game, put it onto the battlefield from your graveyard instead. So, a little bit of a spoiler alert. So, the main card in our deck that makes the whole deck work, Yadaro does not work very well with that card. The main reason we're playing Yadaro, because A, it's a cycling deck, we have to play it. But B, it's also kind of like our alternate win condition. Like if our opponent, if they stone brain our main cards out of the deck and, it's harder for us to win and we have to kind of win through the aggro, Yadaro really, really helps that. It also gets around a blue-white control because, they're countering off our spells, but we're not casting this. We're just putting it onto the battlefield and it has haste. So this is kind of like our backup win condition. And obviously it goes really well with all of our other cycling cards that are in the deck. So that's why we're playing the 4 Yadaros. So next we're playing a couple of these are our non-creature spells, and then our next slide is going to be, so we have one more slide after this, but this is just kind of our other random non-creature cyclers. So Footfall Craters, 1 red, Enchant Land. Enchant Land is tap, target creature gains trample and haste until end of turn, then has cycling 1. We can discard and draw a card. Just another 1 mana cycler, card is good. Then we're playing 4 Cast Out. 3 and a white enchantment with flash. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until cast out leaves the battlefield. And we can cycle it for 1 white. So I really like cast out in this deck because it kind of double dips. It's a 1 mana cycler, which obviously helps us fill up our graveyard with cycling cards, but also we can get rid of any problematic permanent. You know, if it's a planeswalker or creature, whatever it is, we can just get rid of it with the cast out, which is fantastic. So I really like cast out in this deck. It kind of feels like one of the better cards for the most part in the deck. So our last slide here, we have 4 Sweltering Suns, 1 red, deals 3 damage to each creature to sorcery. Then we could cycle it for 3, discard this card to draw a card. So this card kind of goes, you know, both ways. So it is a 3 mana cycler, which with our next card we're going to be talking about here, it's not as efficient to cycle. But the thing is with Sweltering Suns is against like all the aggro decks, this card is just fantastic. I mean, it just blows them out, you know, for playing against like humans or elves or goblins or really any low to the ground aggro deck, and we just Sweltering Suns away their board, it's going to be really, really bad for them. And obviously with the Sweltering Suns, we can still discard it, you know, even with the cycling, or we can just cast the Sweltering Suns and it still fills our Zenith Flare. So, you know, the way I think about it is this card is just fantastic. And even though it's an expensive cycler, I think we still want to play it. Then, the main card of our deck is Zenith Flare. We're playing 4 copies, obviously. It's 2 red-white for an instant. Deals X damage to any target, and you gain X life, where X is the number of cards with a cycling ability in your graveyard. So that's why we're playing all the cyclers, because we want to fill up our graveyard and just flare our opponent out of the game. You know, most of the time, like, 2 flares is pretty much enough. If you go turn 1, cycle, turn 2, cycle, turn 3, cycle, or even just, you know, 2 cycles, untap, you know, like whatever, Sweltering Suns and whatever, or you can just go flare. That's pretty much enough to get the game over with for the most part. So Zenith Flare is a very unique card. It's a very cool card, and a lot of people like to build deck literally cycling just to play Zenith Flare because it is a very, very cool card. But yes, with Yadaro is kind of the main downside because it shuffles back into our deck. But if our opponent like Stonebrains us, or they do something that, you know, if they're playing a lot of counter spells to counter the Zenith Flare, we obviously need other ways to win, which is where all of like our little creatures like the Dronith Stinger, the Flourishing Fox, those can kind of help get our opponent out with the Yadaro as well. So yes, Zenith Flare, obviously, like in the background, it is the main part of the deck, and that's what we're trying to do. And that's the entire deck. We just played a bunch of 4-ofs. Like literally, I think every non-land card in the deck was a 4-of, I'm pretty sure. So we're going to hop into the lands here. We're playing 4 Sacred Foundry, 4 Inspiring Vantage, and 2 Battlefield Forge. Nothing really super exciting. They're just Boros lands, nothing too crazy. Then we're playing 4 Needle Verge Pathway. It's the flip land from Zendikar Rising. We're playing 1 Aganjo and 1 Sokenzen, because obviously, why not? They're free. And it also kind of goes flavor-wise with our deck, because, you know, with the cycling cards we're discarding and drawing, at least we're discarding these and getting cool abilities. So, a little bit of flavor with the Sokenzen and the Aganjo. Then we're playing 2 Den of the Bugbear. Fantastic man land. Sometimes we just need to animate our lands instead of do some cycling. So we're just playing 2 Den of the Bugbear. Then we're playing 1 Mountain and 1 Plains. I decided to choose the cool Boros Legion one. These are in the Boros guild kit or whatever it was from a handful of years ago. They're just really cool, you know, kind of shows different sides of the Boros Legion as a whole. So that is our entire main board. I figured I'd throw this in now. So this deck is extremely cheap to build for those who love to watch all the budget, all my budget videos on the channel here. This deck is extremely cheap, not including the dual lands. Like, I think the deck in total is about $150, and about $130 of it is literally just in all of the lands. So you could go pretty budget with the lands and still have a very nice budget deck that you can play. Just figured I would throw that in there. So, all right, we're going to hop into the sideboard here. We just got 2 quick slides for the sideboard. We have 2 Soul Guide Lantern, 1 mana artifact. When it enters the battlefield, exile target card from a graveyard. Then we can tap and sacrifice it to exile each opponent's graveyard, or we can tap 1 and tap it, sacrifice it to draw a card. Obviously fantastic against graveyard decks. Then we're playing 2 Zavai Thundermane. It's a 3/2 for a red and white elemental cat. Whenever you discard a card, you may pay 2. When you do, Zavai Thundermane deals 2 damage to target creature, and you gain 2 life. So, pretty much the reason we bring this in is against other aggro decks that are playing like small creatures. You know, we can play the Zavai Thundermane on 2, and we can just start picking off all their creatures. You know, cycle 1, pay 2, dome your dude, gain some life, you know, and just keep kind of picking off all their smaller creatures. So, Zavai Thundermane, fantastic card, and it's also 3-2 for 2, so we can also just turn it sideways also. Then we're playing 3 Leyline of Sanctity, 2 white enchantment. If it's in your opening hand, you begin the game with it on the battlefield. And we have hexproof, so obviously fantastic against cards that are like, like Thoughtseize or like not Liliana. Well, it kind of stops Liliana, but not really. But really any deck that's going to be constantly targeting us, obviously this prevents that from them targeting us, so it's great against like hand attack, because obviously, if they start making us discard all of our Zenith Flares, it's going to be a lot harder for us to win. So Leyline Sanctity, fantastic sideboard card for this deck specifically. Then we're playing 2 Fateful Absence, 1 and a white instant. Destroy target creature or planeswalker, its controller investigates. Kind of just a really good flexible removal spell. I wasn't sure what I wanted to play in this slot, but Fateful Absence just kind of takes care of everything. Yeah, they get the clue, who cares? At that point, sometimes we need some extra removal, and Fateful Absence obviously is extra removal. Then we're playing 2 Shredded Sails, 1 and a red instant. Choose 1, destroy target artifact, or Shredded Sails deals 4 damage to target creature with flying, and it has cycling too. So Shredded Sails, kind of a unique card that really no deck plays for, somewhat obvious reasons, but Shredded Sails is still a very solid card. We can destroy an artifact, which, a lot of good artifacts to destroy in the Pioneer format. And then obviously the 4 damage to target creature with flying, we could take out quite a few different cards with that, like it's great against like Spirits, for instance. Kind of just a good flexible card to have, and it has cycling, so obviously it adds to our Zenith Flare. Then we're playing 4 Forsake the Worldly, 2 and a white instant. Exile target artifact or enchantment. It has cycling too. So obviously adds to the count with our Zenith Flare, but the main reason is for getting rid of problematic permanents, like for instance, opposing Leyline of Sanctities. We can get rid of Rest in Peace, which is kind of like the big one. It makes our opponent, like with the Exile artifact specifically, if they're playing like Tormod's Crypt or Soul Guide Lantern, it forces them to pop it that turn so we can keep filling up our graveyard again, that kind of thing. So Forsake the Worldly is just a fantastic card. It's also kind of good against mono green, it gets rid of like all their enchantments, like the Old Growth Troll if it's dead, or we can get rid of the Wolf Willow Haven, any artifact that they wish up with Karn, that kind of thing. So Forsake the Worldly is just a really, really solid card in the sideboard that really works for our deck with the cycling. So that is the entire deck. I feel like we flew through this one again. This was probably one of the shorter deck techs that we've ever done. Let me know in the comment section below. Do you like the list? Do you hate the list? Do you think you're going to consider building this? Just let me know if you do end up building it. I probably will end up building it myself just because it's a very inexpensive deck to own. So why not at that point? Just add another cool, unique deck to your collection. Why not? So I'd like to thank everybody for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one.